Welcome back to your new favorite industry podcast. I know you've listened to all the episodes up until this point, but I'm glad that you're here because we've got a special guest with us today. I am super excited about him. I'll let Ray introduce him in a minute, but welcome back to another episode of Behind the Burner, brought to you by Repairs and Blue is the New White. Ray, good to see you again, bud.
Good to see you per usual. This is getting fun. We're staying consistent here. Our audience is growing. Excited to have a special guest on the show today. For everyone who's listening to the podcast, this is going to be a fun one as we dig into some AI. Josh, how are you doing though? You doing all right?
Oh yeah, man. I'm good. I'm kicking. You know, I run an HVAC company in the dead of the summer in Phoenix, Arizona. So, you know, still got time for this podcast though, guys.
I'm sure every servicer can relate. You're probably busier than ever, which is why we need some efficiencies in the industry. So without further ado, we'd like to welcome Andy, the co-founder and CEO of Bruviti. If you've heard of the whole AI world, it's really taking the service industry by storm, and Bruviti is really leading the charge in this field for servicers and OEMs and for the industry as a whole. So without further ado, Andy, welcome to Behind the Burner. Welcome.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for inviting me for this show, and looking forward to chatting with you and the whole B2B concept, and we love it and look forward to it.
Amazing. Well, I know you're very well versed in the technology world and the AI world, so a lot of our audience that's going to be listening, this is really going to open up their ears to just new technology that's coming down the pipeline, not only for enterprise clients, but for small business. So, you know, usually how we like to start the podcast is we'd love to understand, who is Andy? You know, what is the story behind Andy, and how did you get into the technology world? So yeah, if you could take it away and give our audience a sneak peek.
Sure. So thanks for the introduction. And so again, my name is Andy Chinmulgund, CEO and co-founder of Bruviti. We are based in Silicon Valley. We have been working on building an AI solution for the past 5+ years. And so as you all are familiar with this new wave of ChatGPT and what's going on in terms of AI in the field service, AI in the industry, we have been working on this for the past 5-6 years and grinding it out and figuring out what's the model that's really going to work in terms of the industry that we are focusing on. But just to give you a little background about me, I've been staying in Silicon Valley for the last 30 years. This is my second startup. Classic Silicon Valley, worked as an software engineer, then started a company, sold that company, started again, and this is how we are rolling right now. Bruviti has been focused primarily in the home appliance, commercial appliance space up till now, but we have been morphing into other industries as the need of AI from a field service and triage perspective is increasing, and we see a great opportunity for a solution to bring into the field. And one of the things that we see sitting in Silicon Valley is that you talk about AI, they're big players doing a lot of things, but really what it really matters from a manufacturing industry perspective. So that our past 5-6 years, we have spent most of our time in Midwest. All our customers are based out of Midwest and South, and what's really affects that industry and how we can apply the cool and upcoming technology in the industry where they can be beneficial to servicers, OEM, warranty providers, all of it. So that's our focus, and looking forward to talking and discussing these things with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just right out the gate. I'm curious where you came up with the idea, or how you came up with the idea to provide a solution in this space.
So one of the things, since our background has been in the networking sector, so I've been working in various connectivity aspect of it. So what happened was when we started working in this industry, we've seen connectivity being in the commercial appliances, home appliances being coming up to the front, where appliances or equipments having some sort of a connected protocols in there to connect to the cloud, connect to the services. And that kind of started getting us into this industry. Our first few years, we started the company back in 2012. For the first few years, we spent in building some sort of a IoT or connectivity solutions. But while we were building this, we saw this huge gap in terms of what the OEMs were trying to solve from a service perspective on the warranty side, as well as services trying to solve the issue once with the customers. And the crux of the solution is that how you can keep the customer happy. And one of the main issues that the customers were facing is, the customer experience depends on how many times the visit happens from the servicer, whether it's a first time fix or what percentage of the time you have the right part on the truck so that you can actually take care of this issue right there and then. And one of the biggest issue we found out initially was that even diagnosing the problem in the beginning. So when the customer calls with the problem, what the agents at the call centers are noting it down and what it really transfers into what the technician is going to come and fix it, there's a lot of gap. And we saw that there is a huge play there in terms of application of AI. And when we talk about AI, how we can bring the natural language processing. So it's basically understanding these descriptions in English and figuring out what it really means from a machine perspective, whether the fault code, error codes, and how do you predict those kind of things, and then morph that into the solution that the end customer is looking for. So that's the gap that we saw in the home appliance space, and that's how we started. And now we have morphed primarily in many industries, HVAC, commercial appliances, kitchen equipment, commercial kitchen equipment, home appliances, and so on and so forth.
Wow, very cool. Out of curiosity, would you mind sharing what the first business was that you started and sold?
Yeah, the first business was a large OEM in the home appliance space. That's where we started working with. And that's when we saw the magnanimity of the problem in terms of the number of appliances. Typically, these OEMs sell millions of appliances a year, millions of appliances get serviced. There are more than 60, 70,000 services who are applied, who are using or who are in the home appliance space. So we saw the problem in a bigger way. And then that's how we started looking at how AI can be really beneficial in streamlining this process.
And at the core of warranty, if maybe a homeowner or a chef buys a piece of equipment and they have to maybe call or get service under warranty, and let's say that servicer doesn't come out in a prompt time, that directly affects the renewal of buying more equipment with that manufacturer for warranty. It's really the customer success arm at the core of equipment. So thought I'd add that note. It's such a crucial part of the process, but it's never really been truly addressed until now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, customer experience and customer success are the biggest driving factors that what you have started seeing in the manufacturing world. I mean, we're familiar with that in the consumer electronics world. It's all about how cool the equipment looks or how cool is the app looks, but it's really ties down to the customer in terms of the usage and how well it's serviced and how well you're actually getting experience from the equipment in warranty, out of warranty, and that really drives the stickiness to the manufacturer from the customer's perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So, go ahead, Ray.
So I want to take a quick step back because there's a lot of audience that listens to this podcast that are entrepreneurs building their own companies. And when you were growing up, when was that moment when you decided, I want to build my own company rather than go and work for somebody? Is that always your mindset? Were you always build?
Good question. Love it.
Yeah. Actually, I started this, I'm 50 now, and I started this startup world when I was 27. So I can proudly say that I've been doing this for the last 23 years. And I think the primary reason is like you want to make an impact and you want to make an impact very quickly. And the best way to do it is that run your own show and figure it out. And most of the times, as you all know this as entrepreneurs too, a lot of times you fall and then you just get up and restart doing it, restart thinking it. But yeah, that's been my passion since early 20s that I wanted to do something on my own.
Amazing.
Oh, that's great. That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that, Ray. And I think to your point, we can all relate to that. So listen, you talked about what Bruviti what the void that it fills. I'm curious because I think there's a lot of our listeners that don't yet know what Bruviti actually does. Can you explain how it works as simply as possible?
Sure, sure. So think about us as that we are a triage engine. So our focus is that we provide the technology, AI technology, primarily to triage a issue in the field. So this could be an issue in terms of how to predict the right kind of part. This could be triaging an issue, how to make sure that the first time fix happens. And this could be an issue where what we call it as a call deflection. So it could be just an operational issue and how you resolve that before even sending a truck out to fix it. So it's really triaging the equipment in the field is what we provide from our software perspective.
Hmm. And so when you're triaging this data and when you're processing this data, there's different parts of the industry that use different like workflow softwares, right, to manage their operations. Are you a platform that's looking to kind of integrate and be open to these technologies, or how do you see yourself, I guess, integrating into maybe a servicer's workflow of like the day-to-day?
Yeah, so our focus is primarily triaging the equipment and providing the solution around that. So we are a very open and modular system the way it's been designed. So we have an application that could be installed on your computer as an agent, or it could be a small agent, or a small company with 5 or 10 agents, or it could be hundreds of agents who are using different workflow or work CRM systems. So we integrate on the northbound interface as well as on the southbound interface. So what I meant by that is that we will integrate with your ticketing systems, CRM systems. We integrate with your field service applications, any kind of mobile apps that you may have, to provide that triage knowledge to those applications as well as to the CRM system. If you're small enough and if you just want to use our system off the bat, it comes with its own UI and configurations and all of it. So you can use it as a standalone. So we call it as a headless or as a full functional application. Either options are available.
Very cool. So now that you've explained kind of the gaps that it fills and how it works, what's the ultimate outcome that a service company can expect to achieve by using it?
Sure. So I'll take a very good question, and I'll take it. I'll answer in parts. So when we work with the services and servicing companies, we would look at it in two folds. One is give us your historical data, and let us tell you what the AI is telling you about the history of your data. So just analyzing the historical data, we can predict certain KPIs. We can predict certain patterns that the data is telling us. So very simplistically explaining is that based on your, like, let's say you're a service organization with 10 services taking a call, you do 100 calls or 60 calls a week, we can provide you the entire workforce management dashboard based on that. So who are your services? How are they using who's an expert in what certain areas, who is actually ordering more parts, where you can actually look at in reducing ordering parts because you're spending a lot of time or money in shipping and handling and restocking. What are the trends that we are seeing from a first-time complete perspective, average handling time perspective? What is the mean time to repair? So a lot of these different KPIs, we will look at it from your historical data. Looking at that history of the data, we will come up with what we call it as what are the assist suite of products that you need in order to improve those KPIs. So, and then we work with you in terms of targets. You know what? Today, 50% of the time when my technician rolls out with a truck, he has the parts are required for that particular call. I want to increase that from 50% to 60% because that's actually drives a lot of margins as well as customer satisfaction for me. So that's how we work with the technicians in terms of improving those efficiencies and the KPIs aspect of it. So it's historical, and then applying historical information to learn what can be done in the live environment.
And And that's super important because you can have all the data in the world, but if there's no way to create action items to have that next step, data means nothing in many ways.
Exactly. So typically we would do is that what we call it as a smart audit. So we just come in and look at your data and we'll give you an audit report on that. And based on that audit, we then provide you what are the applications that you need or the changes that you need to do in your workflow in order to achieve those efficiencies that you're looking for.
Oh, very cool. All right. So you're an AI platform. We can't go the entire episode without talking about ChatGPT, right? And how that's affecting the industry and your company and your processes in particular. So, obviously that burst onto the scene a couple of months ago. Nobody had heard about it. And then all of a sudden everybody's using it and it's this next big thing. So, a couple part question here. Did the implementation of ChatGPT or did that change or alter anything in your business, number one? And number two, how is it going to change the landscape of the entire industry moving forward?
Sure, absolutely. So, and the perfect topic to talk about. So I'll tell you about chat. So as I mentioned earlier, we've been doing AI for the past 5 years. One of the biggest thing that has happened to us is ChatGPT coming in forefront and taking the world. Like you see what has happened to ChatGPT, that it went from 0 to 100 million in less than 2 months. This kind of scale that happened, none of any of the applications. You take a TikTok, Facebook, Gmail, any of these never had this. So this is the first time ever that you've seen adoption and so quickly. And ChatGPT has been absolutely phenomenal and great for us because, we have been trying to provide this or talk about AI and how AI is going to benefit all these OEMs for all these years. And everywhere we had to go in and explain what we are doing and what it really means and how it's going to affect the different KPIs. ChatGPT changed that world for us. Now every CEO of every manufacturer is going after and asking every organization in their group, tell us what are you going to do with ChatGPT. So now suddenly our phone is ringing for people we have been trying to reach out. Hey, can you come and tell us what you can do with ChatGPT? I'm like, nothing but absolute great kudos to OpenAI to making our world easier. Now we don't have to explain. When we say we are an AI company, nobody asks us any questions anymore. So it's been absolutely, nothing else but fantastic for us personally as the company. But then let's talk about what it's going to make it to the industry. And then there are a lot of things that people talk about when it comes to ChatGPT. And it's very important for the industry to understand this from an OEM perspective, as well as from the servicer perspective. So ChatGPT, in layman's technology, if you were to talk about it, it's called as an LLM. What it means is it's a large language model. So the whole idea behind ChatGPT is that it understands the language, it understands the syntax, and understands the context. And based on that, it can generate statements, songs, paragraphs, whatever have you, right? You've seen a lot of those applications. But how does it really affect us in the industry, in the commercial appliances, or in HVAC space, or from a servicer perspective? And our industry is very specific and it's interesting because if you look at the OEM data today, we call it as dark data. OEM has almost 60% of the data is not in public domain. So for ChatGPT to work really well, or being what you see that people use to write essays and songs and everything, they're all used. The ChatGPT works on what's available in the public data domain. There were about 175 billion data points on which OpenAI trained their models to build ChatGPT, and that's why it's giving you all sorts of this great output in terms of when you ask questions and things like that. Now, but if the data is not in public, how does that really apply to me? How do I make use of that? So the best way, what needs to be, and then there are other aspects of ChatGPT from a privacy security perspective. And then there are two things that I would like to highlight here. One is called as hallucinations. So it's basically just the way human hallucinates, it's the data that can hallucinate. If it's fed into a wrong data to the AI, AI can hallucinate and generate lots of data that could be erroneous. And so you want to protect yourself from hallucination, as well as you have to protect, as well as there's something called as prompt engineering. So AI is only as strong as possible in terms of what sort of questions you're asking or what sort of information you're trying to get. So what kind of prompts you're providing, that's what drives how AI is going to be beneficial for you. So the best outcome that you are going to see from ChatGPT is to use ChatGPT to actually synthesize your data or actually create semantics around that data, but use it in a safe fashion where you don't open it up to the world so that everybody knows about your data. And then the second aspect of it, you make sure that no erroneous information is fed into that can actually very detrimental for if you're an OEM and somebody feeds incorrect information that claiming certain issues are happening with that equipment. And if that just goes viral, that's a big issue for you. So it's very important to use it in a judicious way in order to make most benefit out of it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Wow, that's a lot of information I didn't know about.
I know. I mean, I
ChatGPT.
just
No. That's good. It's good. I didn't know a lot of that. Some of it I did, but what you brought up a really, really good point, and I think that it's important for our listeners and viewers to understand. Because ChatGPT is this novelty right now. People are using it. They're having fun with it. Right? They're creating a whole bunch of cool stuff, and I mean, even some people using it in their business. But and there is a big but, right? It still only leverages what's available in public eye. So all of that information that is being transferred behind the scenes, particularly by OEMs, as you had mentioned, isn't making it into the model that everybody's playing with right now, right? And I think that is that's an important piece of information that some people often forget, especially when we have conversations like this. So important to bring up. But thank you for sharing that information about ChatGPT and the future of the landscape. It really is enlightening. I'm still having trouble wrapping my mind around it. So I do. Ray, do you have any questions?
Well, I think what stood out to me was actually when the first part of that question that you answered, where it's really powerful that ChatGPT has really lowered the barrier to entry for any AI company in many ways, because now the consumer that maybe didn't grow up with technology or isn't a technical co-founder, might you say, they can experience AI in a very applicable situation for them in their day-to-day routines. And so they can relate with that and then relate to a company like Bruviti, and it really knocks down those barriers. For example, this industry is really old school, right? There's a lot of pen and paper that's been in the industry. There's a lot of big wigs that have been in the industry for 30, 40, 50 years. But all of a sudden now they're using ChatGPT to write their emails or maybe write an article. And so now they can officially relate with something in technology. So I thought that was a very interesting point that you brought up, because it really has broken down the barriers quite a bit.
Yeah, and you're going to see a plethora of these applications coming out and going to help the industry in order to facilitate the automation aspect of it, or improves the KPIs that the industry has been tracking around. Bear in mind that ChatGPT, in my opinion, in our manufacturing sector, in the commercial as well as residential and HVAC business, is not going to take away the jobs. I mean, that's one of the fears that people talk about. Is it really going to take away the job? It's actually going to really facilitate people to use the systems more wisely and more actually in a better way to give the right kind of customer experience around it. So I'll just give an example on this, is that a lot of times what happens is that a particular, like if you're responding to a customer query with an email back to the customer, and there's a lot more information that you're trying to put in terms of what needs to be done or what are the changes that are happening, and the customer needs to do this, do that. Instead of sending a long email, you can, if you ask ChatGPT to summarize this in a very concise way in a paragraph, 10 sentences or 5 sentences, and send it out, it's going to be much more effective. And it's going to be a much more beneficial for customer to understand that. So using ChatGPT for something like that is a great idea. But if you're an OEM and if you start to putting up all your proprietary data through ChatGPT 8, it'll be very expensive, by the way, is because ChatGPT has limitations in terms of how many, only 4,000 tokens you can send, and there's a cost associated to it. So it can run the bill very quickly. But more importantly, what you really want to use is that you want to use some sort of an AI model that allows you to build your intelligence in-house and keep it in-house, and only open up ChatGPT to summarize the issue or to create certain applications that are going to be beneficial to you, rather than opening up all your kimono to the open or to public.
That's interesting. It's also going to force people to ask better questions.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Prompting is going to get better, and you're going to create some prompts that you want customers to ask in certain way so that you resolve the issue efficiently and quickly. And that's where the key or the art of using ChatGPT is going to be, how you create those prompts and how you make it.
For all the technicians in the field, if you're watching, imagine a world where you just write a quick little prompt on your service summaries and it just does a full detailed service summary, 1-2 paragraphs for your office staff, clean, grammar free. And just imagine that world, techs that are listening to this podcast, because it's coming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. In fact, it's you put the right point. And one of few services we've been working with, one of the things they wanted us to build it is, when you invoice, a lot of time the servicer says, I fixed this, or we fix so and so, and you want as many details on the invoice so that the customer exactly understand what was wrong and what was fixed. So ChatGPT can create those detailed messages with all the details that you want very efficiently, very quickly with a point and click. So you don't have to keep writing those things, which will make services job much easier.
Yeah. I think that's where these guys in the field are going to find immediate value with stuff like this, because, and we talk about this on this show in particular a lot, through the years, the recent years, I should say, technician or servicer's job has evolved tenfold. What used to be just going in and fixing equipment and saying sign here has become just complete parade of processes and systems and applications and procedures to follow. And it has completely altered what it means to be a technician, at least from a responsibility standpoint. And there are several techs out there that are having a lot of trouble wrapping their mind around this, and so I think it's exciting to see that we are finally at what I would consider a turning point, to where all this technology is finally going to come full circle and start making that job easier. Because as I know, and I've said a million times, I'm a big adopter of technology, and I'll adopt 1,000 different things in my business to make my business easier and simpler. Problem is, when I adopt 1,000 different things, am I really making it simpler and easier? So I think it's exciting, to hear your perspective on this and what might be around the corner.
Yeah, and another application where we see is what we call it as the talk to the document, where a lot of times you're looking at the manuals and service bulletins and the information trying to fix a particular problem. Using AI, now you could actually very simplistically ask questions to the document, and it'll respond back what sections, what areas that you're looking for, and how to fix those things. Then instead of you scanning through a bunch of big PDF manuals on your phone or a tablet, So this could be very well voice activated. Just ask questions and it'll respond back with what steps or what needs to be done. So that's going to be a huge feature that's going to be useful while you're fixing the issue in the field.
Yeah. All right. So, Ray, do you have anything else to kind of put a bow on the ChatGPT function before we move on to the next topic?
No, I think it's fascinating though. Very excited.
Me too.
For it.
It's always exciting. I could sit and talk for hours just on this topic. But in the spirit of extracting as much information from you as possible for our listeners, let's move on. So, so we were talking before the show about how the distributors are starting to get involved in stuff like this too, which means, they're starting to have the foresight in the industry as well. And you guys, Bruviti has just received an investment from a newer distributor in the space, right? With Marcone. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about that and kind of what that looks like, what that means, and what we can realistically expect from that, that partnership.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, we closed our investment round from Marcone last September, and since then it has been absolutely phenomenal in terms of growth for us for the market outreach perspective, as well as the really providing the technology that's the industry needs. I mean, if you look at Marcone, it's absolute number one leader in terms of home appliances and being a part distributor in that space. Their wealth of knowledge in terms of warehouse technologies to distribution channels and distribution technology into the commercial space is really changing the world in HVAC as well as a commercial kitchen space. And integrating that with the Bruviti triage engine actually allows now services, as they're ordering the parts, to triage an issue before they place an order, as well as also allowing customers to actually, so in some cases, I mean, for the customers to really get the part at the right time very quickly with the technology built into from parts prediction to parts distribution. So having this kind of an end-to-end solution that allows parts to be distributed very efficiently and very quickly, and right part being distributed efficiently and quickly, is going to be the game changer in the industry. This is one thing that this industry, whether it's HVAC as well as the commercial space, has been lacking in terms of how you tie in these triaging aspect of it and distribution aspect of it very efficiently. And with my Marcone commercial platform, if the services sign up on that, it's effortlessly done today, and you can take advantage of that.
What do you believe is your competitive advantage coming into this space for the commercial kitchen industry? Obviously, you have a history in the home appliance sector, but how do you believe you're going to be able to win this vertical? What's the secret sauce?
So for us, the problems that we saw in the home space are very similar to the problems that you see in the commercial space, in terms of the customer satisfaction, in terms of first-time fix rate. So the KPIs that we addressed, or KPIs that we are addressing in this industry, are very similar to the other industries. Mm-hmm. What we have learned, and one of the beauty of AI is really how much you learn from the data that you have used to build the model, and you've gone through it. So all the learnings that we have from the home space are applied in the commercial space. So that gives us an added, that gives us a step ahead in terms of how we solve these KPIs and how we build the customer experience solution efficiently. The second aspect of what I would like to address here is that we build our models, which we call it as domain-specific models. So we ingest a lot of the data before we build those models. So a lot of the public data, whether it's the user manuals, FAQs, troubleshooting guides, are ingested into our model before we go after that industry. So when we came into the commercial appliance space, we have already inbuilt a lot of this data, whether it's manuals from well-built to middle B, Ali, all those equipment manufacturers have already ingested into our system. So when the services look at our Tech Assist as an app, or our Agent Assist as an app, a lot of these manufacturers' data is already pre-built into the system. So that way allows them to take advantage of that. So that's where our differentiation compared to our competitors in terms of what data we bring into the table. And then, of course, the performance and how quickly we solve those issues, just because we have the expertise in looking at certain KPIs which are applicable to the field service and triaging the equipment in the field.
Well, I know I can speak on this, and I'm sure Josh could attest to it as well, where in this industry, for anyone who's watching knows, there's really only been one OEM parts distributor in this space for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with Mark Cohn coming into the space, it's going to be really good for the industry. It's going to provide optionality, but it's going to drive innovation. And I believe this is going to be a tipping point for the industry as a whole to see more progress, frankly, in my opinion.
Absolutely. 100% agreed. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a good point, Ray. Thanks for bringing that up.
Mm-hmm.
So, Andy, what aren't we asking?
No, I think you guys touched upon very good points and how this solution is going to be applicable in the industry. So it's actually, all sorts of right questions you asked. I think what I would say is that some of the things that are, in general for the industry, it's going to be for the next few years to watch for is that, how me as a servicer, for example, how do I take all these different AI technologies, whether it's the optical character recognition engine to identify an appliance or a rate plate, to a chat GPT to give him LLMs and all these things. These are very confusing, or it could be the Google glasses or any sort of that video capabilities. A lot of these things are out there. A lot of these things can be utilized. I think what is going to be the challenging part, and this is where more folks like you can do, is that more education around this is that, because the whole idea behind the technology is that it should make your life easier and not more complicated. A lot of times, and as you correctly pointed out, a lot of times the applications are still paper and pencil or Windows applications, and suddenly you jump into a mobile app with a video conferencing and all that could be daunting. But at the same time, what's happening in the industry, what we've seen is that there is a lot of the baby boomers are retiring, and the millennials and the young generation that's coming up, it's very well versed with the technology. So marrying this technology piece with the baby boomers to Generation X to the new Zs and the millennials is going to be the challenge and an opportunity too.
So I'm really fascinated. This is the last question I personally have for you, Andy. This is a controversial topic. It's a topic that we're really passionate about, repairs, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. We're talking about data, right? We're talking about data, how we can use this data to create cool things on the end for servicers and OEMs. In your personal opinion, who do you believe that data belongs to? Do you believe it belongs to the operator who bought the equipment? Do you believe it belongs to the OEM? Or do you believe it belongs to the actual equipment? So I'm very curious what you guys believe at Bruviti.
And as you can see, since we work with all the customers, so the best politically correct answer is the data belongs to all of us, all of them, right?
And it would be the equipment, essentially.
Yes. But more and more so, what's happening is that depends where in the product life cycle where you sit, So if you're in the warranty period, the data does belong to the OEM where they can make most out of it. If you're post-warranty period, then the data actually resides with the customer and the servicer, because that's where the most value is going to come out of it. Or the warranty providers, because one of the applications we have started seeing is that repair versus buy, right? So whether is it worth repairing or whether it's, so these kind of decision making is really going to be on the customer. And as you guys both know very well, is that from a servicer perspective, a great servicer or somebody who knows what the issues are versus somebody who just replacing the parts, there's a huge difference. And it's almost like an art, like somebody who knows how to triage an equipment versus somebody just going and replacing the parts. So this data is going to drive almost people who are just replacing the parts to make them more well-versed or being the subject matter experts. So in that regard, the data resides with the servicer if it's post-warranty. So in warranty, OEMs, post warranty, customers, as well as the services.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that question. I love your thoughts on it because when you look at OEMs, they usually can get the warranty data, but for them, a lot of times the holy grail is the post warranty, right? Because my dad has ovens that he's ran into the ground for 35 years, so and Josh knows, right? He's worked on plenty of those, so it's fascinating to see how long this equipment can actually last post warranty and how we can learn from that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Andy, any final words of wisdom before we say our goodbyes and sign off?
Oh, thank you very much for this opportunity, guys. I really have loved talking to both of you, and it was very nice. And looking forward to connecting with the audience at different shows, at different service or events. And we'd love to see if you have any questions on the chat GPT or in general AI, we would love to address them or answer them over email, phone calls, whatever have you. Thank you.
For any listeners that are interested to check out Bruviti, where can they find you? Where can they find your guys' company to reach out?
Yeah, so we have, of course, www.bruviti.com. You can look at our website with our products information. There is a email info at bruviti.com for any questions you can send us. We would be happy to answer any of those.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, Andy, thank you for your time today. Me personally, as a technology entrepreneur in this industry, thank you for what you're doing, connecting the industry, making it easier for everybody in the industry to work together. So really appreciate you coming onto the show. I'm sure our audience was taking notes while they were driving their trucks to the next service.
No, that's awesome. Thanks so much, Andy. And as a service provider too, thank you for all you do and for providing and helping drive the data that's going to drive the entire industry forward. So keep doing what you do, man.